Now to a different theme, if I may. One which is more immediate and which is a common challenge across the whole island and across every community. The building of a truly shared society. One of the great strengths of the GAA, as I understand you, is your sense of place. Your emphasis on the local and on the parish level. And I'm well aware that in many localities, the GAA is the glue which binds the community together. And that in and through the GAA, so much first-rate work is done at the local level with young people, as well as promoting community spirit and work through local clubs and local activities. Churches too operate at a local and parish level. So we do understand the great advantages of having a strong sense of local place and local pride, in the best sense of that word. Yet it is also true, I think, to say that in general, we still struggle as to how to share our sense of community, our own perspectives, hopes, fears and needs with those outside our own tradition and our own immediate area, wherever we live and whatever our background. We're reasonably good at building what the sociologists call bonding capital, connecting with people rather like ourselves. But as a society, we have not yet really learned to build bridging capital, connecting well with people who are not like us. And I hope you would agree with me that there is more to doing that than an education programme alone can deliver. Outreach and dialogue are very important stablemates of education. And in the GAA, you certainly have an energetic outreach programme. Yet I want to suggest to you that other avenues need to be opened up as well. Allow me, if I may, to be very personal for the next few moments. In preparing this address and in talking to a fair number of people, it became very clear to me that there is still a huge gap between how you in the GAA see yourselves and your work and how it is seen and understood by those outside the GAA community. Now, there are many reasons for this, but please do not underestimate that to be properly understood in wider society and to be properly responsive to wider society is going to be a very long haul. I therefore want to make a serious suggestion for your consideration that might well help with this. It's that you take the initiative to set up a structured forum for dialogue with the civic society of the Unionist community. In such a forum, we could stand in each other's shoes. We could learn to talk well together. We could address the perceptions of the other, share some hopes, work through some real fears, as well as build substantial personal and some very much needed public relationships. As Robbie Burns put it, and forgive my not speaking or trying to speak with a broad Ayrshire accent, for I'm a down man. Is it okay to say that here in Armagh? I'll risk it. Robbie Burns, in a very famous quote, said this: "Oh, would some power the gifty gie us, to see ourselves as others see us. It would frame many a blunder frae us, and foolish notion." In doing so, we would be incrementally building a much better understanding of what a shared future actually looks like at parish level in Antrim and Armagh and Armagh. And this in turn would have huge potential for shaping a high-quality, wider cohesion, sharing and integration strategy which still seems to be as elusive as ever. That suggestion as to how to help build a shared future brings me to my second challenge to you this afternoon. It's how to help shape the coming decade of centenaries so that we all benefit from the events and the anniversary events. There is a huge variety in the centenaries to be marked in the next few years. From the launch of the Titanic to the outbreak of the First World War to the events that shaped the political landscape of the island of Ireland. And there is an increasing urgency to figure out how to mark anniversaries well. The urgency behind the commemorations debate is this. By 2018, towards the end of the decade, we will be in a situation of 50 years on since 1968. This brings us to a new and exceedingly difficult round of anniversaries, in which many people who experienced those events will still be alive. That fact alone makes them immensely important. For every year after 2018 will be the 50th anniversary of an atrocity. Another 30 years of anniversaries after 2018. We must talk about this now. And we must, absolutely must, get our upcoming anniversaries acknowledged and remembered in a way that properly honours the past, but does not trap us into wanting or trying to rerun it. Democracy at the beginning of the 21st century is very different to democracy at the beginning of the 20th century. It is, I think, very important to remember that the history of Northern Ireland and the history of the Irish Republic did not begin with the struggles over partition. There is a shared and often tortured history involving us all. There are also myths to be dispelled, and unknown and even uncomfortable facts to be allowed to surface and to be properly interpreted. For example, it came as a real surprise to me to know that the Ulster Covenant was signed in 1912, not only in Belfast and Edinburgh, but by 2,000 men in Dublin as well. It's also not widely known that in 1934, James Craig, famous for his reference to a Protestant government for a Protestant people, also said, and I quote, "I myself laid down the principle to which I still adhere, that I was Prime Minister not of one section of the community but of all, and that as far as I possibly could, I was going to see that fair play was meted out to all classes and creeds without any favour whatever on my part." It seems to me very important to find some big overarching ideas that will enable us to properly remember the past and at the same time help shape our thinking for the present and our hopes and plans for the future. It is beyond question that our forefathers took what they believed were the right courses of action in their day and generation, in that climactic period from 1912 to 1922. They took a variety of positions as to what good citizenship meant to them in their time. But democracy has moved on recognisably since then, not least in the aftermath of much war and much pain. For the Unionist community, good citizenship 100 years ago meant that they signed the Ulster Covenant. By 1998, good citizenship to the majority of citizens on this island meant that both the Unionist and Nationalist Republican electorate voted for the implementation of the Belfast and Good Friday Agreement. Or to put the point another way, our understanding of good citizenship 100 years ago divided this island and our communities. Within a couple of generations, a shared understanding of good citizenship has helped us take some steps along the road of building a shared future. And I know that the GAA is committed to that shared future. That was dramatically symbolised in the events at Berra, at Constable Kerr's funeral, and by the visit of the Queen to Croke Park in May this year. I know that you have a clear policy of showing respect for the different cultural and political identities that exist in our community, and that as an organisation you fully respect people's right to express their cultural and national identity in line with the Good Friday Agreement. And of course, in return, you quite properly hope to gain the respect of others for the right of the GAA to be an Irish cultural, sporting and community organisation. So this leads me to suggest, with both real confidence and real enthusiasm, that those of us to whom a shared future matters are already in the business of redefining active citizenship in a new way for our time and generation, basing it on mutuality, respect, consensus, and with rigorous but non-confrontational debate about the values we wish to see upheld in our democratic systems for the up-and-coming generations. I also want to suggest that those of us with clear Christian and biblical convictions ought to be part of that debate, not least because our shared Christian heritage goes back over 1600 years to St. Patrick and his ministry here in Ireland. A shared future is but one facet of what the Bible teaches on the importance of restored relationships. Can I challenge and indeed invite the GAA to continue to help shape both the thinking around the upcoming centenary anniversaries and also the practicalities of how we remember our past, so that the coming 10 years could themselves be remembered as a decade of citizenship and as years of healing some of the wounds of the past, and which will also help us to find well-grounded hope for the future. So that's me. Thank you again for the invitation to be with you this afternoon. It has been a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Hamilton, for a very